Good morning, Broncos country. I hope everybody's having a great day this morning. This is Legends of Mile High. And as we're waiting for all the streams to come in, I have a special guest today. So this is going to be a great show. And my next guest really is someone who played for the Broncos for 13 seasons from 1981 to 1994. And in my opinion, and I've argued this, is maybe the best right tackle in team history. So please welcome my special guest, Ken Lanier. Thank you, Ken, for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. It's
I really appreciate.
good opportunity, honor.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate it. Fans are going to appreciate it. There's this show. We talk a lot about history on this show. We tell historical stories about the Broncos. So having you come on is going to be obviously a treat for me, but a treat for the fans and the people who listen in as well. So again, appreciate it. And the funny thing is you're a Broncos great, but you really didn't start out in football so much. You were a track star. You went to Florida State. You held the record for shot put for a while. Tell us a little bit about how you got into football and a little bit about your track, how that kind of transpired.
I was always a good shot putter, and in high school, my dream was to go to the Olympics. I played football just because I could. Matter of fact, the first time when I went out to play, you had to run around that proverbial tree and come back, for the warm up. And that couldn't, no, that wasn't me. So I ended up quitting, really. And then the next year I came back out and I stuck with it and, played through high school and I was still interested in track. I held a bunch of records for the Ohio State, as in the state of Ohio, shot put records for a long time, at least 10, 15 years, with a throw of, I think was 65-7 or something like that. I can't remember exactly. And then I chose Florida State because it had a good, outstanding track coach and a track team and an okay football team. The coach that recruited me was actually a student of my father. My father was an instrumental music teacher, and he kept nipping at me. He said, okay, you can play both, you just, come on out. And that was Bobby's second year, I think, because he came from West Virginia, then he was at Florida State, and then it was the second recruiting year. And at the last minute, I did a scholarship for track. And then at the last minute, I said, okay, I might miss football. So they let me do a combination of track and football. So in the summer, I did track, and during the fall, I did football.
Yeah, that's, so at what point in college did you realize you were going to make a career out of football?
I didn't. I didn't never dream of it. And it was a scout. I think his name was Lyde Huggins. He said, Ken, you have a chance to get drafted. He told me that this was 4 games before the end of my college career. He said, you have a chance of getting drafted. And I was like, I never dreamed of that. So I kind of flipped the switch on the last 4 games. And then I got selected to the Senior Bowl. And at the Senior Bowl, there was, I think it was, I can't remember which coach, but it was Denver Broncos coaching staff, Red Miller.
Okay.
Yeah. And then after that, I played for them and made a good showing. And then Red got fired. And then Dan came in. And then Dan chose me in the 5th round. And the rest is...
Yeah, fifth round choice you played at one point. You had started 164 out of 165 possible games in Denver after your rookie season. That is an amazing Iron Man status, really, for a right tackle. I mean,
Right.
just you as we're seeing now. I mean, we're seeing people get injured in the Broncos right tackle right now. McGlinchey just was injured in practice. So it's what do you? I mean, is there anything you can really attribute to that? How did you maintain that great health and injury free for the most part through your career?
I mean, I was always like that. I had nicks and bruises and stuff, and some things I shouldn't have played with that I did play with. And it's a kind of a question nowadays: what is considered an injury? You know,
Right.
I know that the pendulum has swung where before they didn't report injuries, so called, and then they got in trouble and they got fined. So that's why you hear, okay, so and so's probable or this and that because they hurt their finger or something like that. So
Yeah.
it kind of makes it seem like, okay, what's going on? So you got all these uh, millionaires running around and not playing, but actually they're trying to keep some longevity of the season, because we had a lot of seasons where we were beat up, but we just kept playing.
Yeah. We yeah, I mean, it's a different game now. You started out a little bit later. I mean, you would right tackles and offensive tackles in general are some of the highest paid, highest paid players. So,
Yeah.
but your career was quite amazing. In fact, I want to show you something that when I was young, following Broncos, I subscribed to, I don't know if you remember this magazine,
Oh
Broncos World
yeah.
Magazine. You're on the cover of, volume 1, issue 9. It was a very short-lived,
Uh-huh.
but I read it. I mean, I always read those cover to cover because it was fun when I was young to see that magazine. But in it talks of you have a little a story in there, but it was talking about the Philadelphia Eagles in 1989, a game against the Philadelphia Eagles, where you went head to head with future Hall of Famer Reggie White, who's in his prime, and you only gave up 1 sack. I mean,
Mhm.
that's a testament to your ability as a right tackle to play at a high level, right? Do you remember that game? Because I think the rest of the team gave up 6 sacks, I believe, in
Right.
total.
Mhm. Yeah, it was played at home. Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's one of those things where you're going up against at the time he was called the Minister of Defense.
right.
So, it was a rough game. It really was. Yeah.
Yeah, that's but again, I mean, I don't think people really kind of recognize how good you are because after time passes, people haven't watched you play. I mean, you didn't get a lot of the awards, accolades, or anything like that. I mean, you're playing in a small market in Denver. A lot of people were kind of overlooked, but I mean, you played for a long time. You played at a high level. You played in 3 Super Bowls with
Right.
the Broncos. Unfortunately, you did spend 1 year with the rival Raiders, but we'll pretend like that didn't happen.
Okay. I came back to my senses.
Yeah. But so what do you if you were looking back, what kind of is your favorite memory of playing with the Broncos? Just kind of describe the feeling of your first game, maybe.
Right. Yeah, my first game was definitely the best game that, always sticks in my memory. You know, I went from complaining about, I told my roommate at the time, Don Latimer, I said, man, I just want to get on the field. He said, homeboy, don't even worry about it. He said, you're gonna get on the field and then you're gonna wish that you could get some rest. And I was like, I don't know, Don. He said, yeah, don't worry about it. So I think it was Calvin Johnson, the other tackle, got hurt. And what they did was Dan came up to me and said, "Hey, you're going to get a chance to play this week, and you know, let's see what you got." So they switched Claudio Minor to left tackle, which Claudio, I think he was more familiar with left tackle too, and moved me to right tackle. And I was all excited about it because I'm playing the Cleveland Browns, so I'm from
Right.
Columbus, Ohio. And the whole thing is that I knew that it was going to be seen in Ohio. So I had to have a good showing. So I was full of energy and everything. And I came out and I was, moving quick, doing what I was supposed to do, made some mistakes, but, I was learning on the move. And at the end of the game, I got the game ball.
Nice.
Yeah. So, yeah, I was
Great.
real excited. And then from that point on, they like, okay, he could play. So they just kept putting me in, and then, let me play here, let me play there. And I still was doing a good job. And then they would take, and the next year, Claudia went to left, and then I started at right, and the rest is, in the books.
Yeah. 165 games later, you were still a starter. Yeah.
Right.
Do you still have the game ball?
Sure do. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the prize one. That's the only one that really counts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I just
Yeah.
want to remind the listeners, if you're just tuning in, we got Broncos great Ken Lanier, right tackle from 80s and 90s here with me today. I just want to give a shout out to one of the guests that come in and talks or supports the show, Michael Riccio, saying hello to you this morning, Ken. So thank you for being here, Michael, and
Hello,
thanks
Mike.
for a shout out to Ken. Really appreciate that.
Mhm.
So I saw in the stats, I looked up your stats. You had one reception in your career. Do you remember that? And how did that
Yes.
come about?
Yeah. Ball was tipped or something, and I saw it, and it was coming down, and it was like eternity before the ball came down. It's like, I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get it. I caught it. By the time I caught it, I turned, and all these linebackers had hit me and everything. And yeah, that was nothing nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I got yelled at in the meetings that like, you're not a ball person. Just next time, knock it down. You could have tossed a fumble or something like that. Like, okay, but it's everybody's dream to pick up a fumble or get something and just run with it and stuff.
Right.
So if I would have caught it, hopefully I would have ran the right way. I
Yeah.
did catch it.
Yeah, it's always interesting when you see a offensive lineman get their hands on the ball. It's
Yeah.
fun and yeah, for sure. Well, so yeah, let's chat a little bit about offensive tackles and injuries. I know we talked a little while ago about Mike McGlinchey, but let's talk a little bit about their kind of injury. So Garrett Bowles, left tackle, by most reports, he seems to be struggling this year, but he's coming back from a pretty major injury. He got it looks like both of his bones in his lower leg busted last year on his
Okay.
right leg,
Mhm.
and he's obviously healed up from it. But from your perspective, do you think that could be still kind of hampering his ability to play left tackle and really move around, or do you think that's something that's kind of healed up and he should be good to go?
It's one of those things that, it's always on your mind.
Yeah.
The strength might not be back where he feels comfortable of pushing off with that leg because he is playing left. So the right, he's definitely pushing off and being able to switch freely. I know they're taking through a lot of drills and on the rehab of simulating things that you have to do, in your position. But it weighs heavy on your mind that, it it just sometimes it just doesn't feel right, or it could be a completely heal, and it could be just a mental game where you just have to get used to doing it again. I mean, he was just now starting to come into his own, and then he got this catastrophic break where you break everything in your leg, not just one bone, but it was two of them. You said both of them, right? To
Yeah, it
me,
looked like from the film footage, it looked like both his legs, both his bones broke in his leg. I
right.
don't know. I didn't see a medical report or anything like that, but it looked pretty rough.
Right. And yeah, we don't know if he's plated together, screwed together, or what. But
Right.
that in itself, and he was already struggling. Like I said, he kind of got past that struggle point and trying to turn the curve. But now he has this to think in his head, and we'll see.
Yeah.
It's going to be a tough road because he's behind the eight ball. It looks like.
Yeah. How long does it take really I mean, that mental process is from a devastating injury like that. I mean, some people can come back sooner than others, but what is what does it really take to get that mental process through your mind and start to feel confident? Is it first real major hit that you take? What's that process like?
It depends on the individual. Some people, play through things that it doesn't bother them at all. It's like they know this is what I have to do. Some people just with little nagging injuries or what have you, um, they can't play with them. You know, I think the worst kind of injury I had was a hangnail, and it just every play it was just like kept feeling my nail. I mean, I played through sprained backs, I played through compression fracture in my neck and stuff, but that hangnail one was just it, it was like I don't know. It's like just kept bothering me.
That's pretty interesting to hear. A hangnail is worst
Yeah,
injury. You're talking about compressed neck. You're talking about other
yeah,
injuries. A hangnail,
yeah,
but it's funny. Like you hurt something like that. It always gets contacted on your hand. You're using
yeah,
your hands a lot. And
yeah.
let's talk about Mike McGlinchey's injury a little bit. It looked like he kind of got maybe it rolled up on, hurt his left knee, I think.
Okay.
He's out for 2 to 4 weeks is the diagnosis for that knee. But another injury that to the right tackle, left side, I think. What is it like to have a kind of a nagging injury on that leg as a right tackle, and how what would he be able to do to kind of compensate for those injuries?
Well, first of all, I don't know what type of injury it is. It's rolled up, so it could be a strained inside ligament, or it could have got hyper. There's several things that it could affect. That is going to be your push off leg too, because you're pushing off. Your left foot's going to be forward when you're on the right side, so you're pushing off and kind of dragging that foot a little bit to keep it in the ground. So you always want to try to keep both feet in the grass when you're moving. So when you're taking your steps, you step one, drag the other one, step one, drag the other one, so that the defensive player can't catch you off guard as far as in the air while you're moving. So that throws you off balance. I don't know, if he's the type of person that could play injured, and not to the detriment of hurting yourself, but some people just feel like I got to be perfect. You're never perfect during the
Yeah.
season. There's always going to be something, some kind of nagging injury, some kind of pull, or something. Something's going on, and you have to go with your mental toughness. Not saying that he's not mentally tough, but I'm just saying mental toughness plays a big role in being able to be a solid player.
Gotcha. Got a familiar face coming in. Gil's joining the show this morning, saying good morning, looking good to you, Kenny, this morning. So welcome, Gil. Thanks for stopping by. Appreciate it.
Hey, Gil.
It's funny that Broncos World. I sent him a picture. Gil's in there as a young man writing for him. He doesn't remember it, but the young picture of him in that magazine. So I had to send it to him. But thanks for being here, Gil, and remind the folks. This is Ken Lanier. Broncos great right tackle from back in the day. Just wanted to, ask a few more questions, and then we'll probably wrap up the show because I know you're very, very, very busy. But so thinking about today's game and, the back compared to before, like we're talking about injuries and stuff, how often did people play injured with like a significant injury, but still played in training camp and things like that compared to today? I mean, it seems like once somebody's injured, they're out for a little while they rest up. Is that a major difference between today's game and the game back in the day?
I would believe so. I mean, a lot of times when you're putting out that type of money, people are trying to keep you during the season, as far as the longevity of the season. They try to make sure that they have their important players throughout the whole season, and especially peaking towards the end. a lot of times it seemed like we would peak early, and then at the end of the season, we'd be just totally exhausted. I mean, we played, a lot of snaps, and sometimes we were the best tacklers on the teams. People forget that. In John's early career, there's a lot going on, and you never knew where he was, so we had to adjust to that. If your defensive lineman starts running opposite direction, then John was scrambling somewhere else, so you had to take off, and that was something that kind of wears on you too, because you did a lot of running, and we
Okay.
spent a lot of time on the field as far as being on the field, because John would make things happen, and I can still remember some of those passes whizzing by my head, and you can hear the laces just
Wow.
and there were a lot of interceptions that could have been, but the linebackers, they weren't ready for a ball coming that fast. So so it was just bouncing off of him, because he threw that ball pretty hard.
Yeah, yeah. One of the strongest arms in the NFL. Really, I mean, that thing was coming out there pretty fast.
Yeah.
We got a we got a question here from Jeremy Sean, longtime listener, saying good morning to you, Ken, and ask if we should be worried about the current tackles on the O line. The reports are they're kind of struggling, but that's coming from camp. They struggled a little bit in the preseason game. I don't know if you watched it, but
Right. Yeah. Yeah, they're struggling, and it's one of those things that I believe that with the new coaching staff, it's going to get straightened out. You know, uh, the offense is usually matures less, further down the road than the defensive line. But with the current coaching staff, I'm having faith in the fact that they're going to find the right mix, and they're going to get it corrected. That's one thing that I noticed, that the mental aspect of the game is a lot sharper this year, than it was last year. He's keeping them focused and everything, and he's keeping his coaches, it looks like, focused too. So it's still early, it's still preseason, even though you only have 3 of them. But something's going to happen, because he's going to make it happen one way or the other. When I say he, the buck stops at the head coach, and
yes.
he believes in the fact that it stops at him. So I don't think he's going to let it get out of hand.
Yeah, and speaking of coaches, so Zach Strief used to be a player on the offensive line for many years for the Saints. Do
Mm-hmm.
you, in your perspective, did you have an ex-player as coach for the offensive line or other coaches? And does that give him a bit of an advantage in your mind, as someone who maybe didn't play at such a high level and is teaching these offensive linemen how to go about their business?
There is a level of respect, but don't forget, there's a lot of coaches that played the ball game, played the game, and they
Right.
can't coach. And some of your better coaches are people that never played the game. They're students of the game. So with that mix in, I don't know where he fits into it. I haven't watched him play or anything like of that fact, or I just don't know much about him other than he did play.
Yep.
But his coach has him in that spot. He must have some good policies and stuff, and knows how to coach, because it seems like he doesn't, he puts people in there that are going to want to be the best they are, so
Yeah. Yeah, I'm liking the philosophy from Coach Payton all the way down. They seem like they're better, more focused team this year. The practices when I was out at camp seemed a lot more crisp, a lot better execution. So I'm really liking what I'm seeing. What do you think? If you were to kind of talk about the Broncos this year, what are your expectations? Do you have any for the season?
I think they're going to be competitive this year. Very competitive, and they're going to find a way to win. It's one of those situations that he wants to win. Everybody wants to win. Everybody's paid to win, but he has the tools to make it happen. So I think we're going to be surprised, a good surprise this season.
Good. Yeah, I hope so. I'm cautiously optimistic because, as watching the Broncos the last few years, has some high expectations and they've fallen short. So I'm gonna keep my expectations high, but I'm not gonna try to be disappointed this year if they aren't as high as I was hoping to
Right.
see.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but so again, Ken Lanier, ex Broncos, here with me. I've got one final question for you, and then we're gonna let you go.
Okay.
If you for young offensive tackles coming up, wanting to be make it in as an offensive tackle, what would you tell them? What is a trait that they should work on going through up into high school, college, and even into the pros? What is something piece of advice you can give them to make their game better?
Find your niche. And then when I say that is that there's something within you that other people couldn't do. For me, it was I could look straight, and I learned how to look to my left to look at the ball at the same time. So I would have both the player and the ball in my vision, and it's a knack of knowing I could read people very good, what their tendencies were. I wasn't, you could be the type person that has to know all the stats. I mean, they have breakdowns at certain percentages, this will happen, that will happen, if they're in this defense. For me, that was too much thinking. I could tell by the stance the person was in. I could tell by the look in his eyes what he was going to do, and make them do what you want them to do. A lot of times I would step outward because I wanted them to go inside, and they thought, okay, it's inside. And then, once they went inside, then I could drive them all the way across because that's where I wanted them to go. But they didn't know that that's where, I wanted them to go. They thought, oh, he just made a mistake. It's like, no, I planned it that way. So, and it's just determination. And you have to have a short memory. If something goes bad, you just can't dwell on it. You gotta, next play, and if you take into mind that it's just the truth, it is just world, it is everything, that there's always someone better than you. You play like you're the best because you are the best, but there's always that one person that's going to have your number no matter what.
Yeah, it is amazing to think about. It's a very physical game. You're moving people around, but at the same time, there's a significant mental game that is involved, like you just described, that people
Mhm.
don't really think about. That aren't in the game. It's an important thing. I want to give a shout out to Gary Palmer coming in saying good morning to you, Ken.
Good
Saying it's
morning,
a
Gary.
real treat to have you here, and thank you for your Broncos service. So, Gary, thank you, and Ken, I just want to say thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate you jumping on and giving the fans some insight that most people don't get. This is
All
a
right.
real treat. So, thank you so much.
Okay. All right. Thanks for having me. Have me anytime.
Okay, I appreciate it. Well, we'll have you back on for sure, and maybe during the season, after a few games have gone by, you can kind of give the
Okay.
critique on the team. So
All right.
appreciate it very
Okay.
much. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for coming in, listening, folks, and we will see you next week, same time. So thank you very much. Have a great day, Broncos fans.